Peace to all. Thanks for tuning in. This is another edition of Info Den with your brother David Rodriguez with another presentation, Afro Latinos in America. This is part 2, second part to a 3-part series, and we're calling this part the silent majority. Just want to give a quick summary or recap. Afro Latino, how they're marginalized and ostracized and not given the just due and correct representation on who they are, despite the fact that Afro Latinos were in the Americas for a very long time and contributed heavily in the history of the Americas. Before we move on, I just want to give a quick shout out. Ray Thomas made an interesting point and just want to read the comment. It says, "Great info, my friend, but you forgot the obvious French and Spanish speaking Negroes and mulattoes of Louisiana. We still speak Creole, French, and have a very different culture than most AAs meaning African Americans. Many of us are also of Haitian and Afro-Caribbean Cuba heritage. Please do a video on this too. Merci beaucoup, mon frère." Thank you, my brother. So just want to give a quick shout out because yes, want to include this history in this overall presentation because we have to include French and French Creole as a Latin language. I'm on the official New Orleans website. They have an article here titled Creole History in New Orleans. Given their definition of Creoles, they say, quote, "Creoles are a mix of French, Spanish, and African, along with mixed race inhabitants and free people of color. They settled in the bustling port city of New Orleans." So by definition, you will have to classify this group as Afro-Latino. I'm on the dictionary.com website in defining what Latin is. If you go down into one of the definitions, denoting or pertaining to those peoples as the Italians, French, Spanish, Portuguese, etc., using languages derived from Latin, especially the peoples of Central and South America. Central and South America. So if you speak French or French and Spanish or Portuguese for that matter, as do a lot of our brothers and sisters in Brazil, the highest concentration of black people outside of Nigeria you find in Brazil, by the way, speak Portuguese, and that's a Latin language. So they are, by definition, a Latino people. This is from Noah's Webster's Dictionary, 1828, definition of America. America, from Amerigo Vespucci, a Florentine who pretended to have first discovered the Western continent. One of the great continents first discovered by Sebastian Colbert, June 11th, 1498, and by Columbus or Cristobal Colon, August 1st, the same year. To the north, the continent is called North America, and to the south, it's called South America. So, since we have a north and a south, two sections, north and south, the whole hemisphere is called the Americas. So when you're talking about America, you're not just talking about North America, you're talking about South America, you're talking about Central America, you're talking about the Caribbean islands, the whole Western hemisphere. The notion that America only applies to the northern continent is something that over the time has caused a lot of confusion and a bit of hijack, if you ask me, because it was first applied to the southern continent. The northern continent is claiming it for its own, claiming that those who are not from the northern continent are not American. And that's the position North America is taking right now. Moving backwards to 1828, a lot of these Afro-Latino populations in Latin America, in the Caribbean and Mexico, some came here free, some came here as servants, who worked their way up and eventually bought land, bought property, had businesses, and lived that American dream. Most of the continent was filled and occupied by this particular demographic that you would call Afro Latino in today's standards, today's definitions. So let's move on. We have an article here from the Economic History Review. We have an article here named The Age of Mass Migration in Latin America. It says here, the experiences of Latin American countries are not fully incorporated into current debates concerning the ages of mass migration. Even though 13 million Europeans migrated to the region between 1870 and 1930. So between 1870 and 1930, a mass migration of Europeans came over. So we have a study here from Vicente Rodriguez, a research scientist. It's an article that was published on the Encyclopedia Britannica. It says here, Spaniards participated fully in the massive 19th and 20th century European immigration to the Americas. Between 1846 and 1932, nearly 5 million Spaniards went to the Americas, mostly to South America. So fast forward many years later, we turn on the TV and turn on to Telemundo to get some Latino culture, and we see images like this. I mean, they look straight up like this could be something from Europe. There's no indication of any kind of Latino culture in them. It looks like they're just mimicking a European, Eurocentric version of what Latino is. These are recent immigrants. Like I said, these are European-looking Spaniards, and that's what's being promoted on TV. But we know the history. This is a blatant misrepresentation, and it's been going on for a long time. What exactly is the population of Afro Latinos in the Americas? 2008, November 21st, CRS report for Congress. We have a report here made by the United States Congress that says Afro Latinos in Latin America and considerations for U.S. policy. And it says here, Afro Latinos comprise some 150 million of the region's 540 million total population. Source here, National Survey of Latinos, says a quarter of U.S. Hispanics identify as Afro-Latino. Within that, you have 4% that are not sure, refuse to answer, or just confused. The numbers could be misleading in terms of those who are actually stepping up and identifying themselves as Afro-Latino, and also those who are maybe Afro-Latino but choose to identify otherwise. National Survey of Latinos says, which term do you use to describe yourself most often? So out of all Latinos surveyed, most would say from their family origin, where you might expect white, black, Hispanic. You know, they might just tell you, I'm from Panama, or I'm from the Dominican Republic, or yo soy puertorriqueño, or dominicano. You know what I'm saying? So they use their country of origin as their race almost. 21% of that Hispanic population would consider themselves to be American. How many of those are not being counted in a total number of 150 million? HuffPost Latino Voices made a documentary. Afro-Latinos often struggle when questioned about their identity, at times feeling forced to choose between being black or Latino. So you have some who, when you ask them who they are, if they are Afro-Latino, may just tell you they're black. Others may just tell you they're Latino. If you're counting how many Afro-Latinos there are in the Americas, are you including the fact that some may not choose to identify as such? And how do you account for that? They say Latinos come in all colors and shades. Soledad O'Brien dealt with this issue of Afro-Latinos, and she says, I'm black, I'm Latina, my mom is Cuban, Afro-Cuban, my dad is white and Australian. Being mulatto, mixed race, proudly identify as Afro-Latino. So Are they counting her in the final census tally when they came up with this number of 150 Afro Latinos in the Americas? So as stated, Latinos comes in all shades and colors. It's a culture that encompasses music, food, dances, language. It's a huge demographic. People in the United States who may not have any kind of understanding of what Latino is or Afro Latino, it appears as they put Afro Latinos in many subcategories, subgroups in which they could then say, hey, those are minorities. But when you put them all together, the Afro Latinos, the Creoles, the Mestizos, the Mulattoes, despite this late immigration of European Spaniards, despite these numbers coming in, the Afro Latinos are still the majority in the Americas. And stay tuned next time for part 3, Afro Latinos in America. Information then. Information necessary for overstanding. This is your brother, David Rodriguez, signing out. Peace.